Welcome, everybody. I'm here with Lauren Cain from Elm Dirt. I'm Josh Gardens, and we're going to be talking all about getting your garden growing with organic fertilizers and amendments. And we're going to be talking all about starting businesses. We've got American Women's Business Day coming up, and I'm really excited that Lauren's going to be sharing with us her experience as an entrepreneur and a woman. And I'd love to know, tell me a little bit about yourself and what is Elm Dirt?
Well, thank you so much, Josh, for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So I started Elm Dirt in 2020, and really it started with a passion of mine and my children. And it's where it all began. My 6-month-old daughter at the time was playing in our backyard, and she was eating dirt out of our backyard, out of our pots. Just had a fascination with touching and playing and eating the dirt. And I was worried about all the things that I was putting into the soil. So that was the weed killers, the pesticides, the fertilizers. And I wanted her to play outside. I wanted her to get in the dirt and get dirty with me. But I didn't want her touching all that stuff. I didn't want her eating any of that. And I've got pets too. And I didn't want them with their paws licking them afterwards and getting it into their bodies as well. And I knew there was a better way. So my husband actually had a family member who was a worm farmer back in the 1980s. And so I heard about worm farming, and I'd heard about worm composting from them over the years. I was like, I need to do this on a personal level, but I feel like more people have to feel the same way I do. And so I set about bringing it to life. I literally had composting worms in my house during 2020 and was shipping everything out of our house during that time, and realized that there are so many benefits of worm castings. And there's a lot of people who don't want to raise composting worms, but still get the benefits. And then there's also so many more people that want the benefits, but maybe there's not enough composting worms to go around, or maybe the worms die off, or they're busy and they want something that's quick and easy. And so we set about making our liquid fertilizers and soil amendments that maximize the benefits of worm castings and healthy soil, all in a bottle or in a bag, and make it super easy for anyone to use.
Wow, that sounds like a lot. So not a lot of people went, after COVID hit, like, let's go start a worm farm, which is really cool that you did that. So if somebody started a worm farm at home on their table, what's the first step that they would do? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So we had these like under the counter worm bins that we originally started with, and it's actually really easy to get started with it. You just need like paper scraps or some sort of brown waste. So even leaves from your backyard count as brown waste. But we had so much paper scraps because we've got kids and they're constantly making drawings. So it was easy to just shred up paper and put it in a bin. And then you put your food scraps underneath it and your composting worms in, and basically you're good to go. There's some crushed up eggshells you can add along the way every once in a while, but just keep adding food and keep it wet and the worms will stay happy.
Wow. Okay. Well, you make it sound super easy. I don't think it's probably that easy, but maybe it is. What are some of the benefits of vermicomposting for the plants themselves?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. So we like to talk about the beneficial microbes, and what those come from is actually the guts of the composting worm. So just like we have gut bacteria, composting worms do too. And when they put that gut bacteria out into their worm castings, you get this whole vibrant life of microorganisms that really help plants grow. They help promote plant growth. They help prevent diseases. They help block out pests. They help deter pests. They make the plants healthier. They make them uptake nutrients easier. So it's just incredible the things we've learned along the way about what worm castings can do for plants.
That's way more than I thought. I thought it was just like it's high in nitrogen, it's got some organic material. So it's almost like our gut biome and all that we've learned about that recently. And now we're sort of applying that to this, worm and passing through, and it's passing these microbes. That's so cool. Like, are those recent studies? Like, how recent is the information that you're talking about?
Oh my gosh, it's currently being studied. So some of the research that I've come across I mean, there was a study out of Washington University, I believe it was in 2022, that said regenerative agriculture, so this idea of soil health and microorganisms in soil, helps increase the nutrients in food and makes even like healthier food. And so some of the research is really, really new, but some of it's also really old. So there was a research study done in like the 1980s that said over time, our nutrients in our food have decreased over the last like 50 years. And so some of it's just combining with old research and bringing new ones to life. But the microbes that we're working with are still being studied. We have a lot that are fully studied, but we also have a lot of ones that are just emerging. And there's a lot of scientists at universities across the nation, not just Washington, that are doing a lot of research into it. And it's not just food, it's about carbon sequestration. It's about the runoff of fertilizers and how can those microorganisms help prevent that.
Wow. You just listed like 20 topics there. So let's dig into one of them, no pun intended, and talk a little bit about regenerative agriculture. That's an area that I've recently been interested in. I'm learning about it, like the 3 pillars of regenerative agriculture. That's how we got connected through this EarthFirst Organic brand, because they support regenerative agriculture. Tell me what regenerative agriculture means to you.
Yeah, regenerative agriculture is really focusing on just the regeneration of soil as a base for growing plants. So unlike traditional agriculture, which is just focused on yield and what plants are growing, this has more focus on how can we continue growing those plants year over year? How can we regenerate the soil so it makes the plants healthier and really boost the whole ecosystem that goes into farming?
I mean, that sounds like all good stuff that we need that. All right. Well, before we just spend this entire time talking about farming and growing stuff, which is what I love, which is great. I want to know, as a woman entrepreneur in agriculture and soil science, because you were a chemical engineer. So as a woman entrepreneur, what unique challenges have you faced and how have you navigated them?
Yeah, there's definitely always interesting ones. And I think any entrepreneur does face different challenges. As a woman, though, there's some very unique ones. Well, I work alongside my husband. And so when we walk into a room, we're both chemical engineers by training, that I was the one who developed the formulas with some of our employees and like did a lot of the scientific research. My husband's the marketer. And so when we walk into a room with people, they automatically assume that I'm the marketer. Like, no, I'm the person who talks to science, and I'm the person who works in the manufacturing environment, does a lot of that stuff, and then marketing is his realm. And so there's a lot of assumptions that go into being a woman in business. I mean, I've had sales reps walk into our offices and automatically assume that I'm a secretary. Like, all right, come on, guys. If you're going to try and make a sale to me, at least, treat me like I'm someone in the company.
Horrible. That's awful. I mean, I'm married to a strong woman, and she's been great. And I've learned so much about, women in the workplace. And I hate that stigma still exists in any way, shape, or form. And I just think it's so cool that you and your husband, but you leading this charge, have brought this company from an idea into fruition. And I just have so much respect for that. So that's so cool. If you were talking to your younger self, like if you were going back to, what is that, 2020 or 2019, when this first came about, what advice would you give your younger self back then?
Ooh, well, we've made so many mistakes along the way, but some of the things we did was just go after any opportunity that comes across the table and explore all avenues. And don't be afraid to ask for advice. I mean, there's not too many people who are worm farming. But I think the network and just reaching out to more people has just been such a beneficial part of what we do. And so we always love talking to, whether it's our fans, but also, fellow business owners or influencers or anyone else. We just love talking in our network and seeing where those conversations lead.
I love that. That's awesome. If you could give one piece of advice to women starting in business, what would it be?
Don't give up, and don't let anyone who makes that assumption uh, you know make you lose confidence, because you may doubt yourself a ton in entrepreneurship. Any entrepreneur does. But at the end of the day, when you're building something and you're watching it grow, you have to trust your own instincts, and you can't let someone else shake them just because they've made some sort of assumption about you.
I love that. Yeah, you have to overcome the assumptions of others. That's actually something that I learned when I first started doing social media. Like people would be like, "Oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't have a real orchard ladder. He's no expert." And they would just throw all kinds of shade on everything that I'm saying. Don't listen to this guy. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And you sort of have to like ignore them a lot, and then also like think about like, okay, whatever. I'm just here trying to put out what I've learned.
Yeah. Well, and especially putting yourself out there online, you get all the comments, and a lot of people, especially in the gardening space, we always say that we love our gardeners because they're so sweet, but there's still, the trolls or the haters out there, and that's hard to just tune out those voices.
When you were starting Elm Dirt from your dining room table, what was the biggest jump that you're like, this is amazing? This is actually going somewhere. What was that monumental moment for you?
Oh, yeah. So in 2020, we were at our dining room table and we expanded to our basement. And at the end of 2020, we decided that we were going to get a warehouse and we were going to go for it. We're going to build something. And so that was one of the first moments. And then our second one was in 2022. We were approached to apply for a USDA grant to expand American-made fertilizer production. And we're like, okay, I've never done this before, but okay, we wrote the grant ourselves and applied for the federal grant and got it. And that was just like a huge like feather in our cap of like, we're actually doing something that people want. And it's great to hear from our customers, but it's also great to hear from the government and from all sorts of different sources that, hey, look, we want you to keep going, and we want you to grow, and we'll see where the adventure takes us next.
Wow. That's, first of all, grant writing is no simple thing. I know a few things about writing grants, and it is so detailed. How long was the application process? Was it pretty intensive?
We were only given 45 days to write the whole thing. But in that time, I mean, we had 80 pages that we wrote. Yeah, it was a lot. It was like a full-time job doing that.
Like, well, besides grant writing, I know you've probably had some hard days running the business. What keeps you motivated on those hard days?
Honestly, it's our customers. When we send out our bottles, we know we're making a difference in the environment and people's lives, and helping grow their plants easier. And hearing the feedback from our customers has just really been rewarding to keep going on those hard days, because a lot of times it's not sunshine and rainbows over here, but to hear how much people appreciate our products and how they tell their friends about it, it really helps us keep going.
That is such a huge motivator to get that feedback loop going. When you look at success beyond just, hey, we're making sales, we're getting revenue, like what does success look like to you?
We want to get as many people using Elm Dirt as possible, because like I said, everyone who uses our products is helping to regenerate the earth. They're helping to lock in synthetic fertilizer. If they're using it with synthetic fertilizer, they're helping to really kind of bring things back in balance in our ecosystem. And so to just share it with more people, and whether that's businesses or home gardeners, we're working with everyone, and to just keep going and see more people use it would be amazing.
That sounds like an awesome goal to have. I want to see more people using it. I want to use it. I need some samples. I'm going to need you to send me some.
Absolutely.
In your journey, have you had mentors or women who've inspired you on your entrepreneurial journey, and how have they shaped the way that you run your company, Elm Dirt?
Yeah, we've been fortunate to run across a lot of people over the years. But as far as like women in business go, there's some stories out there that I follow that I don't actually know the people in real life, but there's Sarah Blakely with Spanx, and there's Allison with Poppy, and the Poppy story in general just like really resonates with me because they started in their own home making something that was for people, but same sort of idea with gut health and human health, and then they went on to grow it to the size they were. They're a few years ahead of us, but it's amazing to follow their story and to hear some of the similarities between the two groups.
That's exciting. Yeah, I know those stories. And yeah, definitely inspiring and amazing. And just, especially when you go after something new and everybody's doubting you. And I think that underdog, that like overcoming adversity, everybody surrounding you doesn't really quite believe or know what you're trying to do. Have you had much adversarial people in your life, and how have you handled that perspective?
Yeah, there's, especially in fertilizer, there is a big stigma around NPK, the nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And everybody has this idea in their head of like they need a 20-20-20 or whatever it is of high content nutrient sources, and we're very low. If you look at our model, it's like 0.5 or less. And there's a reason for that, because we're using microbes to pull nitrogen out of the air or break down what's already in the soil. There's so much more to what we're doing beyond NPK. And so we get a lot of haters that are like, yeah, I can't grow without a higher NPK, or I can't do this because it doesn't have a high enough NPK. And it's been a real education for our customers and for people. And sometimes, you just have to walk away. Like, we're not going to change everyone's minds on that microbes have this great, amazing ability to replace some of the synthetic fertilizer or all of the synthetic fertilizer. Like, our home gardeners don't use synthetic fertilizer, but our farmers sometimes do, because it's hard to give up that ready-made source that's out there. And so we stay flexible and we let people know, hey, look, our stuff works alongside it. But then there's also some people, it's just like, you believe what you believe and we believe what we believe. And the science supports both sides. So we'll just agree to disagree.
Yeah. You've hit a big divide in the gardening space. I know when I started, I was like, oh, I'll just throw some 10-10-10 on it. It'll be fine. All you need is NPK and that's it. And then I started experimenting with like, what if I don't fertilize my fruit trees? What if I just use compost and rotting mulch? Like, these trees are still doing just as fine. I mean, it's still getting just as much fruit yield. And then I became a master gardener and learned a lot more about the micronutrients, and that there's way more that plants need. Like, yeah, these 3 macronutrients are important, but all these other ones are really important for all these other functions of the plant. And so I think you're right. I think it's an educational aspect that a lot of people don't realize of, hey, my plant needs, it's just like us, like, couldn't just eat 3 things and then like be satisfied in life, right? Like, you need a complexity of nutrients to feed the plant. So, all right. So with that, what makes Elm Dirt different from just any old regular liquid or solid fertilizer? Like, what makes y'all different?
It's our micro blend. We breed everything in-house, but we have over 250 species where we have custom bred these microbes to have all these amazing benefits. So if you go out there and you get an organic fertilizer, a lot of times they're not living. So you'll have either dormant species of microbes in there that are very specific species, or you'll have just a completely inert, only focused on nutrients, either liquid or soil amendment. Whereas all of our stuff is living species, and a whole multitude of species where, you put it in, you're going to see results because it'll help balance the pH. It'll help start working and doing all those things you might not necessarily know about. So like, one of the things we talk about is with tomato plants, everybody says you need calcium with your tomato plants, right? And so they have all these tips and tricks, like you put eggshells under your tomato plants when you plant them. But
And you crush them up, and you got to do it right when you plant at the base. I've heard that one. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you know what? There is a whole bunch more that goes into that people don't realize. Like, if you add too much calcium, it can actually lock out other nutrients, so your plant doesn't uptake those nutrients. And all of a sudden you're seeing deficiencies, and you're like, I did everything right. And that's the beauty of microbes, is they will help correct your errors. Like if you're over enthusiastic in one way, it'll fix that for you. Or things you don't even know about, like soil pH. Maybe you don't have something to test it. It'll fix that for you. And so that's the beauty of microbes. They make it easy for you to grow. And the thing that makes us unique is we've got such a wide range of species that it's going to help fix a whole bunch of issues. And so it really works across a whole different types of soils and different plants and all different places.
All right. You said species of microbes. Do you have specifics? I don't want to nerd out too much here, but do you have specific species of microbes? You're like, these are the top 3 and they're really important.
Yeah, I do have a few. The 2 that really come to mind, though, are the Pseudomonas and the Bacillus species, because they have so many different things that they're doing besides just plant growth promotion. So they release stuff that makes the plants grow more. But then they also defend against pests, and they help protect against droughts. So say you don't get rain for a week, it's going to help your plants survive better than if you just had an inert soil in there.
Okay. You've got me sold. I'm gonna be honest. I mean, I knew something was happening under the soil. I knew, compost decomposition, microbes, beneficial fungi. And, it's like you hear the terms, but then you think like there is actually specific, species of things that have specific functions. That's some deep level science. And I appreciate that. How do you convince gardeners of that? Like, when you're going out and talking to people, what are some of the talking points that you use to gardeners to say, hey, this is why beneficial microbes are indeed beneficial to your plants?
Yeah. Well, especially when I'm talking to all sorts of different gardeners, the real thing is everybody wants to grow, and they want to grow easily. They hate staring at a dead plant or like a plant that's not producing. And so it's all about growing easier. Like when you talk about the different species, and like I can nerd out for a long time about all the different things that we do to make sure we've got all the cool stuff and the science behind it. But when it comes down to gardeners, they just want to grow easier. And that's what the microbes do, is they help you grow easier. And it's also more natural, which is a benefit to definitely different groups. But the one that hits on everyone is it's easier to grow when you add microbes.
I think if you had like a subline below Elm Dirt, making growing easier or something like that, I don't know. You probably have one already that's way better than that people have thought longer about. Anyway. All right. So, do Elm Dirt products work the same for houseplants, lawns, home gardens, and big farms? Or do you have to like have different products for different end uses?
We have some generic ones, like we have a plant juice and a bloom juice that work for most different kinds of plants, but we do also have specific ones. So we have like a specific lawn care line. For our farmers, we have farm blends, and we have stuff for our landscapers as well. But for our home gardeners, we try and make it as easy as possible, but we do have like an orchid mist where you spray it on your orchid and it helps it grow, which is a little bit different than like your plants like I got behind me, that you're going to use like a plant juice with, that just makes it easy to use across all sorts of different plants.
Okay. I didn't hear you mention a fruit tree specific one. I'm a bit partial on that front. Maybe that could be a future product, a fruit tree juice. I don't know.
Yeah.
People might get confused.
Now we've got a bloom juice that would help with your blooming, but we definitely have more blends that we have in mind that we haven't launched yet.
Okay. All right. This is sort of an odd question, but is there a smell to it? You know, every time I've used organic fertilizers that are liquid based, it's always like, oh, man, I don't know if I want to spray that in my house anywhere. Is there a smell to it, or is it just sort of that nice earthy smell?
We have a variety of smells, I'd say, with ours. But so you say smells, and to me, I smell like a fish fertilizer is just like the worst smell. And I will tell you
that is the smell I'm talking about.
Yeah, that is not ours. A lot of times people will say it smells neutral, but some people who are more sensitive to different smells might smell certain things, and so we'll definitely get some reviews like that. But you know, you walk down the synthetic fertilizer aisle in like a hardware store or something, there's a smell to that too. And so ours is like earthy, natural smells versus the synthetic chemical ones.
I can smell both those smells. You've got the nice earthy, then you've got that synthetic smell. It's like when I walk into a Tractor Supply in the fertilizer section, and you just know it's all synthetic stuff there. And it's just got that like chemically, like not burn your nose, but not really quite pleasant either smell. So I know what you're talking about there. What's the most surprising result that you've seen from somebody using Elm Dirt?
Oh, so we have this guy who lives in Florida, and he grows yuzu trees, which I don't know a fruit tree grower if you know what a yuzu tree is.
It's like a lemon, isn't it? A yuzu lemon?
Yeah. Okay. And he had one that he'd been growing it for 10 years and had never bloomed. And so he goes and he puts our bloom juice on it, and within weeks it starts blooming, and it's got hundreds of blooms on it, and which turned into hundreds of yuzus. And I was just like, that's incredible. Like, you went 10 years and he's done all the stuff like the Korean natural farming and the composting himself and all that, and then he adds our bloom juice and it starts blooming.
Okay, that's an amazing story. I totally want to see that. You need to get that guy on camera with his, yuzu lemon tree behind him. I need to see that. That's amazing.
So that would be fun, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So what's next for Elm Dirt? Like, what's the next big thing coming out that you can talk about?
We have a lot of product ideas. You kind of hit on it earlier. Is everybody wants the specific plant fertilizer for each specific thing, and so that's one of the next things we're working on. But we have a lot of other things in the works because I know everybody hates using weed killers on their lawns, and so that's something we're working on as a more natural weed killer option. And then the other thing we hear quite often is, we wish we could pick you up in a store. And so we're also working on hopefully getting into stores that will be easy for everyone to pick us up at.
Okay. I want to see it in a store. So I think that would be great. Well, what questions do you have for me? Is there anything you want to know about fruit tree growing or gardening and how that plays into it? I mean, it sounds like you know a lot because you deal with them all the time, but anything that I can answer for you?
Yeah. What's your biggest challenge with your fruit trees?
First, besides having too many, I think my biggest challenge, the biggest challenge I had early on was knowing what grows well in my area. So I planted a bunch of stuff that just never really did well. And so you really got to know, okay, this tree does well in not just your zone, because zones are so broad, but like in the Southeast. I'm in the Carolinas, so it's like, okay, what grows well in the Carolinas in the Piedmont region? And to learn that information, you just can't go Google that. Like, you can, but it's not going to be right. You need to go talk to people. So I started talking to You Pick Orchards. I started talking to people at my local nurseries. I talked to people that were experts and master gardeners. And what you find is like, okay, everybody's like, yeah, I tried that too, and it didn't work. So, apples are really tough to grow here. They have a lot of issues because of the humidity. I think also setting expectations that fruit trees can take a long time. Like, I've had some that took 7 years before they produced like a decent harvest. So you just got to put your patience hat on. And that's a challenge for me because I want everything. I want to taste it. I want to get it in the ground, and next year I want fruit. And you're like, nope, you're just gonna have to wait because that's the process. But in the end, it's so worth it. Like, I have this 10-year-old pear tree. I got 500 pears out of it this year. And my entire kitchen was covered in pears. And it was like the most glorious moment. I was like, this made it all worth it.
That's awesome. Was that your favorite tree that produced all this?
This year, it probably was. Yeah, I made pear fruit roll-ups. I made dried pears. I ate probably 100 pears fresh. It was just a lot. I gave them to friends. Anywhere I'd go, I'd bring like a bag. Like, here, did you want some fruit? Because I got some for you. It was definitely my favorite this year.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a challenge. But pears are one of my favorite fruits too. So having
Okay.
500 is not a bad thing.
Have you tried an Asian pear, like where it's crisp like an apple but sweet like a pear?
Ooh, I don't think I have.
All right. Well, you need to try one of those because I actually visited an Asian pear orchard here in North Carolina, and they specialize in Asian pears. And you take them, and they're crisp. They're not mushy, so they're really good.
Oh, good. I'm gonna have to go find one. See.
Yeah. Well, this has been awesome. Thank you for inspiring others to start businesses and other women to be motivated to overcome, all the obstacles in the world. And I think that is huge. I love hearing success stories like this. I think everybody does, not just like because it inspires us that like we can do something more, we can help other people and fulfill our life mission. And I think that's just so cool. So thank you for sharing that journey with us today. Where can people find Elm Dirt, and where can they find you?
Online. We're at elmdirt.com. We're also on Amazon, and we've got social medias at Elm Dirt, and we're just about anywhere online you'll find us. We're in some stores too, so if you go to elmdirt.com, we have a store locator, so you can find us in some places, but mostly online.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been great. I've learned a lot. I now know that there are specific beneficial microbes and that they do specific things. So I'm going to need to get some Elm Dirt products to try out on my plants, and then we'll see if that bloom juice really is going to blow up my citrus trees, because that's what I want.
Yes, I want to see your before and afters. And thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun.
You're very welcome. All right, till next time.